So for my 10th art challenge, I'm drawing an OC, which is an original character. So I started by drawing the outline and making the pose using simple shapes. I tried to put this OC in a casual pose, but I'm not great at that, so it didn't turn out great. But I tried to keep it really simple. So this OC's name is Vragi, and he is a Viking. He's loosely based on my history teacher because we were studying Vikings, so we were all drawing self-portraits. So I also drew a portrait of my history teacher, so he's based off of him. So because I'm not great at drawing poses, things like the position of the arm changed throughout the drawing. It also took me a while to draw a head that I liked because I had been struggling beforehand with drawing a head that I liked because I actually had another sketch that I had done, but the head just wasn't fitting. So I was glad that I was able to get a head shape for the sketch. I also had to make the legs longer because they were too short to begin with, so I used the select tool to move them down so I can make them longer. So now that I had finished the loose sketch, I went through and I made a new layer and started to sketch the clothes. His clothes might not be historically accurate, they more fit the modern conceptual Viking clothes. So, if they're not historically accurate, that's okay. He's an OC, so it doesn't matter too much. So I started by giving him a shoulder thingy. I don't know what to call it, like a shoulder belt with it has some fur on it, and then I gave him a Viking tunic, and he has like an armband. Other than that, his design is pretty simple. He has like a thick belt, pants, and boots. So here, on a whim, I decided to change the position of his arm because I felt like it wasn't very natural how I had it at first, and it looked more natural hanging down. He also has a battle axe that he has, so he's going to be holding that. I actually forgot what shape the head of the battle axe was, so I did not draw that, but I will add it in later. So for the head, it needed to be realigned. I'd had a lot of trouble drawing the head before and tried using some fun tools to move it around before making another sketch layer for it. So as I began sketching the head, I originally had it at a turned view, but I ended up just putting it at a forward-facing view because it was easier for me to draw, and I think it looked better. So next I went and added little elements onto his clothes, like the texture on his shoulder belt, and then I added a new layer and started my line art. For my liner, I used a different brush than my usual brush, which was fun to experiment with and see how it differed from my other one. It seemed to be looser and more like inky, and it had like an inconsistent width to it, which I enjoyed using. It worked for this drawing, but I think for others I would prefer to use my other brush. But it was still good to experiment with it. So as I was filling out the rest of the drawing, I wasn't content with the left arm, so I decided that because this wasn't a very detailed OC drawing and kind of more of just practice for drawing this character, I decided that I would just cut out his left arm. So now I'm working on the head. Although I had drawn his chin and lower face, I hadn't drawn the top. So I kept the sketch layer there to see where everything would go. He has a headband, and then I drew his hair. His hair is kind of unevenly cut, so it's longer on one half, the other half is shorter. So I wasn't sure how detailed I was going to go with this drawing, so I quickly drew a little mock face. just to see how it would look with details, and I decided that I would just leave it plain, kind of to keep it more of a simple style. I also had to go back and redraw most of his hair because I didn't like how the shorter side of his hair looked. Then I went and I added color and then erased all the excess. Like, I was originally going to try and do some like highlights, but decided just to use a textured brush so they were already added, so they would already kind of be there. For all the cloth, I used a certain brush. For the stick and the fur, I wanted to give it a different texture, so I used a paint roller brush. So then I colored in the skin with a smooth brush, and it looked a lot pinker than it looked while I was actually drawing it. So I might go through and actually change that for the finished drawing image. So now I had gone back and looked at my original drawing of Vragi. So I started working on the axe. The front of it is curved like your general axe, but then the back it's kind of spiked like a pickaxe, which I'm not sure how effective that would actually be in battle, but it looked cool. Because I drew this the next day, I had forgotten which brush I'd used to do the line art. So I actually used a different brush to do the line art, which I wasn't a huge fan of, so it's good to keep in mind what brushes you use, especially when you're experimenting. And then I finished drawing his axe. It took me a few tries to get the back right, and I added little runes onto the blade before going over with the paint roller. And then the blade, and then for coloring the blade, I used 2 or 3 different grays to give it some shininess, but I used the same brush that I used for the cloth. So the only thing left to do was go and add some designs real quick to his headband. His headband has some green elements to it, and then he also has red and blue tattoos on his forehead and arm. So I added those using the same brush that I used for the line art for the axe head. So this is my final drawing. I like it, though I could probably have put some more time into it to finish working on some details. It's not my favorite of all my art challenges. It is my last art challenge, so next video will be something different. So comment below on your favorite of the art challenges.